around the nation. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a new week, birthday week, actually. Kind of cool. So I might take Friday off. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, got a great show for you guys today here. We're going to talk about some very important issues, including Greta Thunberg's speech to the United Nations. So that's really important. Also, we have angry Michiganders, myself included, that are going off on Vice President Mike Pence. Yeah. So that happened as well. Okay. Then we have a Donald Trump hitting a disastrous new record. Will it have an impact on the 2020 election? That's an interesting question. Then we have Ukraine stuff. Donald Trump, Ukraine, that continues to unfold. And I'm going to get mad at Nancy Pelosi. Shocker. And then, interesting story, coming from an interesting source, we have a former Secretary of State coming out and saying some things about Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and their relationship. Very interesting stuff. So we'll discuss that. So a lot of stuff on the show today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Really, really helps us out if you do so, especially share no matter what platform you're on. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, just share everywhere. Again, really, really helpful when you do that. I want to give some shout outs to people on Patreon. Of course, before I do that, I want to give a big shout out to RB who gave us money on Venmo. So I don't give Venmo shout outs very often because I don't really get a lot of donations through Venmo. But if you can't, for some reason, use the Super Chat or whatever, or Patreon, or you just want to give one time and not, set up a recurring donation, whatever, Venmo is a good way to do it. So you can find me on Venmo. I think it's TYT Nation. I'll get back to you on that. I should know these things, but I don't check it very often. But thank you, RB, for your donation and your support. Thank you. More support. Let's go to patrons. Thanks some of you guys and gals. I want to thank Ingrid Gottschalk, Isaac, Jeffrey Johnson, Jesse Johnson. Jesse Johnson, Joaquin Aguilar, Joe Swift, and John Fenner. So thank you to all those patrons, patreon.com/TUAT Nation. That's how you can sign up to support the show on a monthly basis. 1, 3, 5, it doesn't matter. You all go to support the show, obviously, and whatever donation amount that you're able to afford to help the show out, greatly appreciated. And to help us try to get bigger and do more things. And that's what's more important here. One of the things that I'm looking to do actually is to go down to Ohio for the Democratic debate. Maybe see about interviewing some people down there, some politicians as well, people running for office. So that should be really cool. Do some of those interviews in person. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe get into the debate. I'm not entirely sure yet what's going on. But hey, you want to help us out. Makes us more able to do that kind of stuff more often. As I told you, I want to get out and do more things in this primary season, maybe catch a Bernie Sanders rally here and there. I would love to be able to do that. But of course, I do need your help to be able to do that. Patreon.com/TYD Nation. Also, thank you to all the channel members as well that support us. If you want to be a channel member, hit the join button. It's hard to find out who is signed up to be a channel member because the YouTube thing is kind of messed up right now. So I can't go and look at channel members very easily. But thank you to all of you anyway. All right. With all that stuff out of the way, and by the way, there's something that I'm trying to work on that I'm obviously doing a really bad job of right now, and that's glare. So I realized that there's reflections, there's glare in my glasses. That's one of the horrible things of being a person that's afflicted with basically near blindness. I'm kidding. It's not that bad, but it's bad enough to where I need my glasses. And so I'm trying to figure out solutions to cut that down because I know for some people it can get really annoying to be able to pay attention and see with all this stuff in my eyes. So I'm trying to work on that as well. So if anybody's got any hints in that and ways to set up a studio space with lighting, etc., to be able to cut down on that, appreciate your assistance as well. Okay, that said, let's get to the show. All right. Oh. Okay.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
So that is climate activist Greta Thunberg, and she is going hard after the UN at the Climate Change Summit. She did that earlier today, and basically the whole purpose of the speech is to try to spur people into action on climate change, to spur government leaders into action on climate change, because really this is a problem with the scope that really lies in the purview of government action. So now, not only is she trying to make the case, but she's also showing that what politicians are currently doing and what world leaders are currently doing is not actually enough. And so I love that. I love that she's going after hard after these world leaders, and we need more of it. I want to show you more video to kind of put that into context because it gets more powerful. Take a look.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
All right. So obviously super, super passionate, understandably so. Because basically, if you're not angry, if you're not passionate about this, then you don't really understand the scope of the problem. But I wanted to stop there so I can point out something interesting. So in these discussions of climate change, even among adults, we never really hear about how our world runs on this fallacy of infinite growth. All of our economies run on this entire idea of infinite economic growth, that we can just keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Well, but it doesn't work. This entire theory does not take into account natural resources or actual real world limits on things like resources, which are of course finite. Environmental damage. There's only so much you can do before you change the ecosystems. Those are real things, and we know those are real things because they actually happen. Okay, we can see them in science. We can see look, our water is finite. Clean water is finite. Oh, but Jeff, you don't understand. We have an entire ocean of water. We're fine. No, that's salt water. Okay, and so no, that's not drinkable water. We only have so much water in our aquifers. We only have so much water in, for example, the Great Lakes. I live in Michigan, we're the Great Lakes state, right? We've only got so much water here, but yet we're allowing our politicians are allowing these corporations to go and take that money out, or take that water out and sell it for money. This is why, while Flint does not have clean water, this is why while we're facing possible droughts in places all across the world, because of the effects of climate change. So we have some very serious issues going on. And what, none of these politicians are standing up and saying, hey, you know what? She's right. We're in the midst of a major crisis. Instead, it's, well, we got to think about the economy and we got to think about jobs and we got to make sure that oil companies continue to get paid because, if oil companies keep making money, then some of that money is going to find its way into my campaign. Or, you've got these major, television stations, right? Cable news companies that are like, some of that money finds its way into ads. So, can't really do anything about climate change. I mean, we'll put some solar panels on our roof or something and kind of evens it out. But then we're going to play nonstop ad after ad after ad saying how natural gas is a wonderful, clean burning fuel when in reality it's not. So all that stuff is. So now, like she said, all they care about is actual money, which, like, infinite growth is a human invention. It's not real. It doesn't actually exist. So now she's going to continue, and she's going to go after politicians, world leaders, that have been basically lying and trying to gaslight her on the issue of climate change. So let's take a look at that.
How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight. You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you.
Oh, damn. Okay, so this kind of anger, look, this is something, again, we should all be feeling. Why does it take such a young person to spur people into action? Why does she even have to be there? I mean, she shouldn't have to be there. Us adults should have been able to take care of this problem. It is a clear and present danger. And yet, for some reason, no, we have this entire apparatus that has been set up through cable news, through fossil fuel companies and donations for people to say, oh, that's not real. It's not a real thing. Oh, it's a hoax. Climate change is a hoax. Invented by the Chinese, as our president said. You realize our own military takes climate change incredibly seriously. Why? Because not only does it harm operations at home and across the world, but it also will end up being the spark for many conflicts overseas. I mean, look, you haven't had... Bernie Sanders was laughed at, by the way, for this. But Bernie Sanders was laughed at for saying that the Syrian civil war was partly due to climate change. And it's because that area of the world was facing and is facing significant drought issues. That stuff's happening all over the world. So you have places in Australia that are completely and utterly uninhabitable. You have places in the Middle East that are becoming uninhabitable. You even have islands, tropical islands, that are facing basically extinction. They're getting wiped out due to rising sea levels, or will be wiped out rising sea. Miami will be wiped out by the end of the century by rising sea levels due to climate change. These are serious, actual problems. And yet there are people out there that say, oh, no, not happening. Not real. Doesn't exist. No, it does exist. Most of the world scientists agree. And so why does it take, with all these facts and with our ability to be able to look up any fact that we want, our technology, why does it take a young teenager to point out the obvious? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But here's the thing. The reason is the corruption. It's the corruption. There are people that make lots of money off fossil fuels, and they hold a lot of power. These people have more power than country, than entire nations. Because, hey, look, without energy, you really can't run a nation, can you? And so these people, these oil companies, corporations have made sure that their product is the only thing that we really are allowed to use en masse. I mean, sure, we have, solar panels, we have, alternatives like wind power and geothermal and all that. But due to lobbying, lack of investment, etc., those are not in widespread use like they should be. That's a huge problem. These corporations have captured the world, and they are leading us to catastrophe. Now, the world's going to be fine without us. And that's the thing. The world will continue to live on, but after everything is all said and done, if the worst case scenario is allowed to pass and we do absolutely nothing, well, then we're not going to be here. Most of the species are not going to be here. And so, look, if you care about humanity in general and people being alive, as Greta seems to, she cares very much about being alive. She cares very much about the state of the world that her and her, generation are going to inherit. Well, she seems to care a lot about that. Maybe we should too. Maybe we should. And so here's the thing. Again, she doesn't want to be up there. She doesn't want to be in the limelight. You can tell. She's very socially awkward. But at the same time, she can't afford to not be up there. And that's the problem. A lot of these children, these younger people, teenagers, have had to grow up way too fast. Why? Because the adults in the room, the people in power, mostly, refuse to do the right thing. She wants to be a normal teenager. She can't be a normal teenager. And that's the problem. When the teenagers are more of an adult than the adults, that's a big, big problem. Okay. I think I've said all I need to say on that. Moving on. Michiganders are furious at Vice President Mike Pence. Now, during a visit to Michigan, Trump's VP broke a long-standing tradition, leading to a lot of anger online. Now, Mackinac Island, this is what this has to do with. Mackinac Island is one of the nicest places to visit in Michigan, but it has one major long-standing rule. If you come to visit, leave your car at home. No cars. Now, okay, and that's been a rule for over 120 years. So what did Pence do? He broke it. Pence not only brought one vehicle, but eight black SUVs. He brought an entire motorcade. Now, why was he in Mackinac Island to begin with? Well, he was going to the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference. Ironically, on how to win in Michigan. Oops. You might have just hurt your chances there. See, in case you're not from Michigan, don't understand the anger, Mackinac Island has had a long-standing tradition for the last 121 years that you bring no vehicles. Now, except for emergency vehicles, right? So those are allowed because they're emergency vehicles, right? So now you might ask, how do people get around? Well, locals who travel to any distance primarily use either bicycles or horse-drawn carriages. So it's just what they use. Now Pence, he didn't have time for that, and hence became the first ever motorcade on the island. Now, and in case you think, well, come on, he's the vice president, right? He needs his vehicle for protection. He's got to get places. Come on. Understand that a lot of former presidents have visited the island. People like Harry Truman, John F. Kennedy, Gerald Ford, George H.W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. They went there, didn't need a motorcade. Now, to be fair, only one visited as an acting president or as a sitting president. That was Gerald R. Ford. So now, what happened when he went there? I assume he took a motorcade, right? Because he's president of the United States. No, he traveled by carriage. Now, the Secret Service, this is an interesting story, by the way. Secret Service sneaked a car onto the island. But the Secret Service also kept it hidden and didn't use it. So it was an emergency just-in-case vehicle. Well, now that I can understand that, right? Keeping a vehicle in reserve just in case you need to get the president out of there quickly. Totally understand that. But that's not what Vice President Mike Pence had done. No, he openly flouted this long-standing tradition. And that's why people are very, very angry. So now, I want to give you some of the tweets on this because it's fun. Let's start with Rashida Tlaib. Now, she's a representative from Michigan, so that makes sense. Now, she tweeted about this. She said, "Banned for a century, people, and here comes the Trump administration trampling all over it like they do the U.S. Constitution." That's fiery. I love it. This video of the cars driving on our beautiful Mackinac Island makes my stomach turn. Well, it does for all of us. Tara Dublin said, "I wonder where entitled Nazi Mackinac Mike got the idea that he can do whatever he wants, suspend a rule that's been in place for over a century." Nancy Levine asked, "Who brings a motorcade into Mackinac Island, Michigan?" VP Pence is a tone-deaf loser. By the way, I love it. Hashtag Mackinac Mike. Awesome. No, even Greta Van Susteren, this is former Fox News host, to show you how widespread this is. Because this isn't just lefties, right? No, there's Republicans, there's conservatives that are like, "Ooh, no, Mike, no, no, baby, what are you doing? What are you doing?" Greta Van Susteren, she said this, "A motorcade on Mackinac Island? How can that be? Google Mackinac Island." More. Melissa Tracy Goodwin says, "I don't normally tweet politics, but this annoys the crap out of me. Cars are not allowed on Mackinac Island. Presidents and governors previously have all obeyed this. Follow the rules and tradition, or don't go there." I can guess that this is probably a conservative person. So again, anger from both sides, right? Cassandra Seven says, "Mike Pence is such an asshole. There's a rule on this island that nobody uses vehicles. Apparently, rules don't apply to him or his boss." Apparently, Robin James says, "They have to ruin everything, every last good thing in America. Mackinac Island not having cars is part of our Michigan heritage. Veep just took a dump on the pride of all Michiganders." And look, there's plenty more. So now, here's the thing. To kind of cut this a little bit short, I love how it's people from all over saying, "Not cool, man. What are you doing?" But see, it's not shocking to me that they don't care. Like, those of you, and this was a while back. This was during the election. I think it was 2016, 2017. And I did a story on Mike Pence. And it was a creepy, like, some of the stuff that he believes and that he's been told is super disturbing, super creepy. This guy thinks he's like the chosen one. I'm not kidding. You look at him. He's an um, incredibly like disturbed like fundamentalist, and that's what this is, right? He's a creepy guy with very creepy beliefs. So it doesn't surprise me that somebody who thinks he's a chosen one, right, like a messiah from literally from God, flouts the rules, flouts tradition. I must have my motorcade. I must have it. Now, here's another interesting thing about that, right? Um, and this came from a Politico article that I read earlier today. I believe it was from last week. The Trump campaign does not expect to do well in Michigan. What a shocker. So maybe he just doesn't care. In fact, a veteran GOP strategist in Michigan, Greg McNeely, told Politico about Trump's chances. Quote, it'll be tough. Well, I think they just made their job that much tougher. Don't mess with Michigan. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We have Donald Trump and his new record, as well as the Joe Biden, Donald Trump story, and Benjamin Netanyahu. So we'll take a break, come back. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Leave your comments and your super chats. I will read them as soon as we get back from the break. Stay right here on The Nation.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Around the nation, right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. A lot of good comments. So we'll go to those. Start out with Zarp, who asked a question. Michigander. And I honestly don't think Trump's going to win the state again. What chance do you think he has? That's a good question. So considering how narrowly Donald Trump won the state back in 2016, and his favorability has gone down since, not only his favorability, but also everything that he's done in the economy has not been great. Basically, the Trump tax cuts, as I say all the time, created nothing more than a sugar high. And now that sugar high is wearing off. Manufacturing jobs continue to leave, get closed down. Lordstown plant, etc. Look, you can even go and look at 2018, the midterm elections, in which the Republican Party got essentially dismantled, destroyed by the blue wave. So you look at that, and you look at Michigan, I don't think he has a great chance. Now, of course, anything can happen. A lot of it's dependent on how the Democrats do their nomination process, which I do not have a lot of hope for. But so far, man, it's like I think he's got a little less than a 50% chance. So a little less than half. It's likely that whatever Democrat runs is going to end up doing well enough in the cities, Detroit, and Lansing, and some of the bigger areas, to get the majority of votes. I think in Michigan, I don't think he's going to win Michigan again this year, or I'm sorry, Michigan again in 2020. But again, there's a lot of factors that are dependent on that. So we'll see what happens, and we should definitely not be complacent and be more active. Of course, the Democratic nominee matters a lot. But even so, I mean, the appetite for Donald Trump, very, very low at this point. Okay, anyway. So now let's read some member comments as well. So members are people who support the show through our YouTube membership program. And so they generally get priority aside from super chats. So let's go to Sarge Tech, who points out a grievous error on my part. How could I do a story about Mike Pence and not use this?
Mike Pounds.
Mike Pounds. Damn it. Damn it. Thank you for pointing that out. Also,
Mike Pounds.
There we go. So I love you guys. Seriously, though, Jeanette Villalona says, Pence is an idiot who gives Trump googly eyes. He's in love. Is he more in love than Kim Jong-un, though? And it will never be given back. Now, Martin Trammell, in a very serious note that says, many of us that are responsible adults are pretty much effed time-wise as we desperately attempt to pay our bills. That is a great, great point. And here's the thing, right? And so this is why framing matters so much, right? So what conservatives always try to do when you point out, like, hey, climate change, really, really important, we should do something about it. They always point out, well, what are you doing about it? I mean, I read so many responses to tweets about Greta, right? Oh, Greta takes planes and she uses a smartphone. Got her. Nailed it. As if that really matters all that much. Again, 71% of emissions in this world are created just by around 100 multinational corporations. It's not, and yes, I'm not saying like, oh, don't do everyday things, reduce your emissions, recycle more. I certainly try to do both. I've been trying to, save as much electricity as I can around the house, not use as much, etc. Be careful about that, and recycle and not drive, often, etc. I want to get an electric car, etc. All those little life choices, they do matter, right? And when it comes to energy uses, sustainability, etc. But let's look at the reality here. You have behemoths in carbon pollution and methane pollution from these gigantic corporations. And not only that, but you have agribusiness as well. It's a huge sector, right? and a huge part of basically uh, the carbon emissions or I should say the carbon that's being released in the atmosphere. It's a difficult way of saying that, and I'm not sure why I had so much, why I struggled so much to get that out. But anyway, um, so you have these corporations, business sector that are putting out all these emissions, and these conservatives are saying, "Well, it's your fault because you used a straw. Get out of here, ridiculous." So, but it's a good way of distracting people from what's the real problem, and that's corporate power, and that's the fact that these corporations have a lack of accountability under laissez-faire capitalism. And so that's the major point, and they can't come up with anything to counter that. And so it always falls back on, what are you doing as an individual, when really your life choices don't matter as much on the grand scale of things. And so that's a really important point to point out. But okay, anyway, one more here, non-member, sunglasses girl caught something. She said, Greta says that she does not believe people are inherently evil. Well, I agree with that. That's not a naive statement. It's a statement of people, again, people are just people. I don't think people are born inherently evil. I think it's life choices, and of course, mental illness could play into it as well. And that's a little bit of an aside there that I like a qualifier that I throw in, but nonetheless, people can't really help it. They don't really choose to be evil people. And so these world leaders, they choose to be people that, I generally believe that this is the case, that they themselves can't do anything. I'm beholden to my donors. I'm beholden to to my voters. I'm beholden to, look, I'll do something about it. And my plan, it's okay, but it's all I can really do. What can I do? What can I do? And so I think it's just this feeling of, I can't really do anything because, for one, my donors, for one, the political system is massively in favor of keeping the status quo. And so it's one of those things where I think people are just, they feel powerless even if they're in powerful positions. Because these corporations have captured governments and are seriously more powerful, the most powerful things on the planet at this point. So anyway, all right. Democrats completely ignore rural areas. You know what? I think that's kind of true. So I think that's a fair point. And they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Was it? Nope. Wrong one. Actually, pretty far. Okay. All right. A new poll shows that a number of Americans can't stand the President of the United States. Now, that's interesting. Now, according to the most recent NBC News Wall Street Journal public opinion poll, an astounding 69% of Americans do not like Donald Trump. Now, that's Donald Trump personally. That's not about him as a politician or about his policies, just if you like him as a human being. And so that's important because it goes back to what made George W. Bush popular among general Republican regular people, right? And I know it's a weird thing to say, because to me, George W. Bush is a terrible person. He was an idiot of idiots. But then again, compared to Donald Trump, he looks kind of like a genius, a very stable genius, who was also a war criminal. But all that stuff aside, right? So, okay. So the reason I bring that up is because there's that old, I guess statement or adage, I don't know what you put it, but where it's like, oh, well, I like this guy. I would have a beer with him after dinner. I'd go out and I'd have a beer with this guy. I may not agree with him, but I like him as a person. And look, I like Obama as a person. And I could even like some Republican. I can't name any, to be honest, because they've become just so incredibly disastrously bad people. But I guess back in the day, people could name Republicans that they disagreed with, but hey, I could still have a beer with you because I like you as a person, but I hate your policies. Okay. Um, but this is not that. Donald Trump is universally disliked by 69% of the American people because of who he is. Again, that's important. Now, I think policy is more important. And so that's why I don't like any of these Republicans. Why I wouldn't have a beer with any of them? Because their policies are abhorrent. Locking kids in cages, denying reproductive freedom, stuff like that. Okay. So now, again, policy, right? Most important thing. But even if you don't look at that, even if you look at him just being completely unpopular on his personality, well, that's bad news. Now, some political analysts are saying that, oh, you know what? He could actually take how unpopular he is and turn it into a favorable. Now, well, that's interesting. Now, they say that unlike past elections where favorability of a candidate as a leader or leader was key to re-election, they're saying that in 2020, that won't be much as a factor because he will drag everyone down with him. So there is that old saying, of course, that he will drag people down and beat them with experience for being so low. Am I butchering that today? So I'm just butchering everything, but you get it, right? So now they say that this will not be a factor again because he knows how to go low, right? And so Hillary Clinton, he used that with Hillary Clinton. It's funny because she said, well, when he goes low, we go high. And that's not exactly what happened. It turned out that according to studies, Hillary Clinton actually ran more negative personal attack ads against Donald Trump than anybody. Then he ran against her. You know what Donald Trump ran more on? Policy. Now, his policy is horrible. Again, he ran on, well, let's build the wall. Now, is that a policy position? Yes, it is. It's also incredibly racist, but it's a policy position as well. Whereas Hillary Clinton ran Donald Trump bad. Yeah, we know Donald Trump's bad. Okay, tell us about policy. Okay, anyway. So now the Washington Post, Aaron Blake, who's a writer for the Washington Post, he explained this back in July, that the Trump campaign knows how to go low because they've already mastered it. Quote, given Trump's longstanding unpopularity, a big question has always been whether he will be able to take the eventual Democratic nominee and drag them down to his level or in the mud. He showed that he could do it in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, who ended the campaign as unpopular as Trump was. But it's not clear whether he'll be able to do it again. Now, let's be fair. Hillary Clinton had a lot of baggage, a lot of things that were wrong with her campaign. And so it's not a surprise that she was deeply, deeply unpopular. But in 2020, it really depends on who the Democrats put up as their nominee. Again, Hillary Clinton, terribly unpopular. She was out of touch with middle America, couldn't even put together the Obama coalition of young African Americans, Latinos. She just didn't do as strongly with the African American community as Obama had done. And of course, didn't really get the white working class as well. There was that immense lack of enthusiasm for voters in her campaign as compared to Donald Trump. And the thing that all the pundits got wrong is unlikely voters. And so that's one thing that propelled Donald Trump. Unlikely voters. They came out more because they were more excited about Trump's campaign, whereas the turnout for Democrats was a bit more depressed than it should have been, that they were counting. So now, not only that, but something that turned people off was the air of entitlement among the Clinton camp. Oh, it's her turn. Why is she not 50 points ahead? Everyone should vote for me because Trump, He's very, very bad. Okay. But what are you going to do for us? Oh, I'm going to provide no change whatsoever. No structural change because everything's already great, which is, of course, is not true. But anyway, so I kind of agree with personality not being a big factor, right, in this election. Everybody knows and had already known back in 2016 how bad of a person President Trump was, right? Donald Trump is. I mean, again, I did stories in 2015, 2016 about how much of a disaster Donald Trump is and will be for the country, and it's pretty much all come true. So it doesn't take a genius. You just have to pay attention to his record and who he is. Study him at all. Study him for 15 minutes. And you'll come up with a couple of conclusions. One of them being, this guy's really dumb, and he's kind of an asshole. Yeah. Okay. So now what matters more? What are the Democrats going to do to counter that? That's a good question. Now, for me, there's only one answer to that, right? Policy. Good policy. Now, when it comes to policy, no one is even close to Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, she's in second place. She has the second best policies. But again, you ask me, not even close. Not even close. And that's what I think this election is going to come down to. What policies do these, and what kind of vision do each of these candidates represent? Donald Trump, we've already seen his vision for the country. Basically white. That vision is white. White people, billionaires, hold all the power. Immigrants are shut out. Women are denied basic reproductive freedoms. That's what they believe in. That's what they want. So what's the Democratic vision? Well, it all depends on who we nominate. Again, Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders has a vision of people actually being able to get health care. Everyone getting health care for less money, for cheaper. People having a chance at opportunity, create new jobs, leave their job where they're guaranteed health insurance through their employer. No longer do you have to rely on that employer under a Medicare for All system to be able to have that health care. So you can leave your job, you can go be an entrepreneur and not have to worry about, what if I get sick? What if I lose my insurance? Or what happened to the GM workers? Their insurance gets taken away because they were on strike. Or you lose your job. All this stuff. Very important stuff. And again, Bernie Sanders has the only policies that will address these things. So now you add to that the personality part of it. Bernie Sanders is a rock star. Now, I know. He's a frumpy old Jewish guy that's very, very angry, right? That's what the establishment media always points at him with, and says about him, right? Well, somehow he has amassed a very loyal following of people. Why? Because he tells the truth. He's a genuine person. And not only that, or I should say because of that, he's one of the most popular politicians in the country. And he does refuse to be dragged down to Trump's level. Why? Because he focuses on policy. He keeps it about policy. That said, he does know how to fight Trump. And he does know how to fight back. But he keeps it about policy. And that's the most thing that's important. And so what is Donald Trump going to do to attack him? Well, they've already been doing that by going after taxes, Venezuela, right? Socialism. That's what they do. And of course, Trump already has a nickname for him, Crazy Bernie. I know, a Crazy Bernie wants to take away your student loan debt. Oh, well, actually sounds kind of good. Well, I like that. Guaranteeing health care for everybody through a single-payer system where you get better insurance. That sounds kind of good. Oh, we get Medicare? Wait, an expanded Medicare? I actually kind of like that. Again, it's not people liking their insurance company. It's the fact that they like having insurance that is guaranteed. This would do that. It would guarantee it to everyone. But look, here's the thing: the socialism thing, that's their entire plan, right? Attack socialism, compare Bernie Sanders to Hugo Chavez, Joseph Stalin, etc., right? But they use that against Obama. And anybody who knows Obama knows he wasn't anywhere near socialist. And honestly, Bernie Sanders isn't even a socialist either. Bernie Sanders is a social democrat, like FDR, and what the Democratic Party used to be before it was taken over by corporate interests. When they actually brought some people to some of the most popular programs the country has ever seen. Trump's going to have a really hard time, I think, fighting against the groundswell of people who actually want Medicare for all, free college, and other great policies. And he's also going to have a really hard time now disguising his own failures. He could run on the failures of the establishment and Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, right? But he's going to have a hard time running on his own, especially when Republicans for the first 2 years had complete control of the government, where they were the majority party. And what did they do? Tax cuts for the rich. Add in his own corruption, and well, I don't think it's going to go very well. The only way the Democrats can lose this is anoint another Clinton-esque candidate who represents establishment interests. Now, luckily, there's this thing called a primary, right? And in a primary, we can vote for our nominee and the nominee that's going to best destroy Donald Trump before it's too late. So get out there, register to vote, make sure we support a real progressive so that we can crush Trump and actually enact a progressive vision for America that doesn't leave anyone behind. Okay. All right. Oh boy. So let's leave the Ukraine story. Okay. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is currently in the political fight of his life against challenger Benny Gantz. Now, this was decided in the recently held Israeli elections. Now, before this potential upset, former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson came out and said this last week, that while serving in President Trump's cabinet, the Israeli government, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, would sometimes share misinformation to persuade Trump on particular issues. Now, this is according to the Harvard Gazette. So now, during a panel with Harvard professors, Tillerson said this, quote, "They did that with the president on a couple of occasions to persuade him that we're the good guys, they're the bad guys." Now, that's important because of the potential foreign policy ramifications that the president would inevitably run into. Now, I'm talking about specifically Iran. So now, Donald Trump's got some really bad instincts. Except when it comes to war. He actually has a really good instinct to stay away from Middle Eastern conflicts. Now, that's good. Now, there's a couple of different reasons, likely because his base hates those wars. That's great, something we agree with. And B, probably because he doesn't care about the people living in those areas. He's content to let them fight amongst themselves. Okay, well, look, I think personally that we should play a role in helping to create peace, not war. Instead, for decades, we've been doing the opposite in order to gain access to resources like oil. So, okay. But anyway, all right. Again, very consequential, though, having these discussions because it involves Iran. So now the Israelis, I think, were probably whispering in Trump's ear saying, hey, Trump, Iran is bad. We got to defend ourselves from their aggression. Saudi Arabia, they're being attacked by Iranian-backed rebels, terror groups. You're helping there. So you got to do something. Remember, we're the good guys, and those Iranians are the bad guys. Okay, well, hey, in reality, look, the right-wing government of Israel, I don't think they're the good guys. I don't agree. Saudi Arabia, also not the good guys. Now, Iran, also not the good guys. There's kind of a pattern here, right? But at least the Iranians were willing to make a deal with President Obama, a deal that was actually pretty good. And it made it so that Iran did not eventually pursue a nuclear weapons program. You know what happened when Trump got in office? He ripped that up. And now, as a result, we almost went to war with Iran. We almost attacked Iran. Well, what do you think is going to happen if you attack Iran? You're going to get into a war. And now, at the end of the day, I guess, thankfully, Trump backtracked a little bit and said, okay, we're not going to go to war. We're not going to order a strike, but we are going to put even more devastating sanctions on Iran. Okay, well, again, at least it's not war, right? So now Tillerson, he said this, quote, "We later exposed it to the president, so he understood you've been played. It bothers me that an ally that's as close and important to us would do that to us." Really? Is it all that shocking, though? Again, yes, our allies spy on us, we spy on our allies. Remember, we got caught spying on the Germans. And that wasn't too long ago. I think that was during the Obama administration. And then the Israelis just got caught spying on President Trump. So it's not like we're an angelic presence that does nothing wrong in America, or that any other country is perfect and doesn't do anything wrong. No, we all spy on each other. Unfortunately, that's what we do. So now the real problem here is that Trump's stupid, which is unfortunately what a lot of these stories boil down to. Trump is not a smart person, not very smart, very like breathtakingly stupid. Okay, but more importantly, easily influenced. All you have to do is be the last person in the room to say something, and he'll likely believe it or at least look into it. And so the Israelis, I think, use this to their advantage. Now, under Trump, the U.S. has recognized both Jerusalem as Israel's capital and Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. In return, Netanyahu has named the Golan settlement Trump Heights. So there's that. Not only that, but the administration continues to refuse to acknowledge the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territories. Not to mention the massive human rights abuses in those areas as well. Only focusing on the Palestinian aggression from ridiculous groups like Hamas, which do stupid rocket attacks, and I don't understand why. But anyway, not a lot of good guys here, right? So now the good news here is Trump is starting to distance himself from Netanyahu. Now, why is that? It's because Netanyahu might soon be a loser. Trump appeared to distance himself, according to reporters, from Netanyahu on Wednesday after the prime minister failed to earn a parliamentary majority in the latest election. This is the second such election. Okay. Trump told reporters in California that he hasn't spoken yet to Netanyahu about the election results and stressed that his administration's relations are, quote, with Israel. Those cool remarks are a blow to Netanyahu, who is fighting for his political survival. This is after, by the way, Netanyahu ran billboard ads for his re-election campaign. Now, among all the fear-mongering about the Arabs coming to the polls and all that stuff, which, by the way, they did, and they supported his opposition, Benny Gantz, and likely pushed him over the top. But back to Netanyahu, he literally ran ads with him and Trump shaking hands. Oops. Yikes. And now Trump's like, no, I haven't called him. Benjamin who? What? No, I don't know that guy. He was a coffee boy. That's cold, man. Cold. Now, adding to his troubles, by the way, Netanyahu's, if he's ousted, he could face a possible indictment for fraud and bribery. You know why? Because he's also a criminal, just like Donald Trump. Look, I suppose playing Trump at this point is not possible because Trump in the end might have actually played him. Sad. All right. Look, that's all I got time for, guys. Thank you. for going around the nation today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel or consider becoming consider becoming a patron or channel member. Thank you guys for watching. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys later.